And we are live. This is Live with Sondra. Before I jump into today's conversation, I have a question for everybody watching. How often do you find yourself skipping long-term relationship building because you're under pressure to hit this month's or this quarter's numbers? If one means never and five means all the time, drop your numbers in the comments because I think this is something almost every leader or everyone in a sales position wrestles with. We've all felt the pressure to close the next deal, chase the next opportunity, or hit the next milestone. But what if urgency actually is costing you long-term growth? Today, we're talking about something that I think is one of the most misunderstood concepts in business development and sales. People use those terms interchangeably all the time, but they are not the same thing. And when organizations blur those lines, they often create bottlenecks, burnout, and missed opportunities that they didn't even realize they were losing. And today's conversation is all about building businesses that just don't grow faster, they grow smarter. All right, welcome to Live with Sondra. I'm Sondra Shannon, CEO of Gatemaster Technology. And before we get started, I want to thank our sponsor, Gatemaster. At Gatemaster, we've spent more than 3 decades helping attractions grow through better technology, stronger partnerships, and long-term relationships. One of the things I've learned is that sustainable growth doesn't happen by accident. It happens when every part of an organization understands its role. That's sales, customer success, operations, to business development, and clarity creates momentum. And today's conversation is really about creating that clarity. A quick shout out to all of our podcast listeners who are joining us from around the world. And if you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to like, subscribe, or follow to it's a brand new Live with Sondra YouTube channel as we continue to bring together people in the industry that are helping shape the experience economy. So let's talk about who's coming on the show today. Today, I am joined by Molly Piveral, Chief Connector at Simply Molly. And honestly, I love that title, Chief Connector, because what business is really about and what business development is really about is connecting people. Molly is known for creating, and I am sorry, Molly, I think I have, let's see here. She actually just said something to me about this, but Molly is known, I lost my place here in the bio. Molly is known for combining creativity with analytical thinking to solve complex business challenges while helping people discover the value of meaningful relationships. Molly believes that every single interaction can change someone's life. And I think that's pretty powerful philosophy in business because business is not just about business, it's about life, it's about relationships. So outside of her work, she says she can't live without her family or working in her yard. Molly, welcome to Live with Sondra.
Good
So there I go,
afternoon.
reading, and we just talked about that, Molly. Reading your bio. Anyways, I have to say, did we get the bio correct? Is there anything else you want to tell the audience about who
No,
you
well
are
done.
and welcome
Well
to the
done.
show?
Great job.
So can I ask you something?
Anything.
Chief Connector. I really love that title. I think that's a very cool title to have. I've never heard that before. And is that something you came up with or something that you've heard from other people?
No, it's something I came up with for years, as long as I've been in, the industry. Over the last several, done a lot of work with next gen kids and everyone coming in the industry. And at a lot of events, someone would come and grab me and be like, "Oh, Molly, I need you to introduce whatever. Oh, hi. Someone said go talk to you because you're going to introduce me to so and so." And so every time I meet somebody, they'd say, "Oh, Molly is, great at connecting people. Like you should talk to Molly." And so in January, when I decided to venture out on my own, I'm like, "Well, what am I? Who am I?"
Yeah,
Hmm, Chief connector. And it's been that way well before I saw it myself. So yeah, chief
I
connector.
love that. I love that title. I have to steal it someday. I like connecting people too. That's actually like what my friends, a lot of my friends, that's one of the things that they say to me is like, hey, in fact, I got a text today, like, do you know somebody who does this? I don't know if you're that kind of person, but I'm that person that gets those texts.
I hear 5 degrees of separation instead of 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon or
Yeah,
whatever. So if I don't know somebody, I know somebody, and if they don't know somebody, they know somebody. So it's,
I love that.
there's always a way.
Do you think that is a function of loving and appreciating people? Because I know for me, like, then the reason I know people is because I really love people. Like I I love getting to know people. I love meeting people. I don't care if I'm in a bar by myself. I will meet the whole room if I get an opportunity to do that. Do you think that that quality that you have has something to do, or do you believe that that's a quality that you have that has something to do with it?
I would say yes. I mean, I have to, I go back in my life and look at things, and my husband jokes that like I've made relationships on an airplane flight, one leg of some flight, and then we write to each other for 20 years and never see each other again. So I think it's always been that way. Like in high school, I was friends with all of the subgroups because I belonged in one place. But somebody great in this group and somebody great in this group, and so we should know each other. Like great people are great people, and I think connectedness is where I think is where your humanity lies, and so
Yeah.
that's always been a place for me, and it's made me feel like there's value because I'm like, well, what if this person has something to share, and what if it brings them value? Like, what if they share something and now they feel more valuable, right? And that's where I feel like if I can help you see that aspect in yourself, then that's truly what I should be doing. So
Yeah. Well,
it's
I
kind
think
of
it's
where
really cool because it means you see people, right? And I think that's something really cool about being somebody who can connect people. You truly see people and you see how these relationships could work for each other, not just, when you're developing them for your business, which kind of leads me to our conversation today about business development and sales and how you're saying they're not interchangeable, right? That's the conversation we're having, but a lot of leaders believe they are, and I'm curious, what is that tipping point? Like when does one become business development and one become sales as a function, or if as a similar function, if they're the same function,
I definitely would say they're not the same function. Now they can
right?
be combined and relatable, like intertwined, but they are two separate functions. And there's no real, I'm starting to work on where there could be some education around what business development is. There, you could learn about sales and selling hard and fast and being persuasive. But business development, like if we think about the functions of what that looks like, it's broader than sales, right? It's deeper than sales. It's more solution driven, I think. Um, I think it connects to the customer life cycle. It makes you think like the customer or put yourself in the space of the customer. And I think business development is proactive. So if I measure the two against each other, one of the things I think about is sales is about closing the deal. Business development is about creating the opportunities for future growth, right? Sales is maybe short to midterm lived from a revenue standpoint, where business development is about creating those long-term financial goals that are sustainable over years. Um, you focus on the qualified prospects in business development to get to that closing the deal, where in business development, you're looking at creating the new markets, right? So sales, you're maybe measured by a quota, where business development is more about the long-term partnerships, the lead sources, a strong pipeline, your strategic partnerships. So they can, it's like in ingredients of a cake. Flour and sugar do not do the same thing. They help each
Yeah.
other, they make each other stronger, but they're not the same. But what I see is people, say, go get the next gig. Well, hold on a second. That may be a short term. Sales can be a short term thing to bring revenue in. Sell it, bring it in. Sell it, bring it in. But if you're talking about the life cycle, and particularly I think in this industry, um, we're working with creative vision, right? We're working with reliability. We're working with technical expertise. We're looking
Yeah.
at a collaborative partner. That's not selling a roof or solar panels or a vacuum at the door, or that's not what we're doing, right? Um, Tree removal, that's a sale. I'm
Yeah.
selling something transactional.
Yeah. Well,
Business
also, I'll
development is
tell
not transactional. Sorry.
it's interesting because this industry, I've worked with a lot of coaches, both in sales and business development. And I 100% agree. I think that business development is about relationships, right? And it sometimes it's not even about the relationship, a transactional relationship. It's just about you, like we talked about early on. You want people to think of you when somebody asks them or has a problem that maybe you can solve, right?
Yes,
And I love that you're separating the two because, when you start training for sales, it's a whole different thing. It's like you said, about persuasion. It's being able to convince people that you can help them. And hopefully, if you're in sales, you're sold on your product and you can actually help them. That's one of
that's correct.
the craziest things to me is when people are selling. In my industry, we have this term vaporware when people are selling software that doesn't even exist, right?
Yeah,
And it's hard. Like, how can you sell that? You've never even seen it work. You know, I'm not saying that there isn't a need to build stuff at times, but there's that's a real thing that a lot of people find themselves buying these products and they didn't know that they were going to be a beta test, right? And so for me, I've never been able to do that because I truly believe like if I'm going to sell something, I also need to believe that it's something that can help somebody and know that it can help somebody, right? And
right.
so, I think there's interesting thoughts around sales and business development. But I love what you're saying because especially in this industry, we have uh, one attraction that we work with, and we were talking earlier a little bit about like the pandemic. I was telling you that story. That was my one sale during 2020, but we had talked to that
Hmm.
guy and built a relationship for 8 years. And
It's
truthfully,
the long game.
I never even thought we were going to work together. I just liked the guy. You know what I mean? Like I didn't think we were going to work together. We just really liked this person. And so we kept, going with the relationship, but that ended up being my one deal during the pandemic.
Well, I think that we lose sight, like business development is the long game, right?
Yeah.
It's trust through consistency, it's competence, reliability, transparency, right? Delivering on commitments, right? If I go and buy a television, right, then I'm a salesperson and I have to sell 1,200 TVs today. That's not what this is. And
Yeah.
I think from a thought leadership perspective, we have to sort this out. We also think that business development is I buy you a drink and a dinner and then you give me a contract, right? There's the back end data driven side of true business development, managing your CRM system, feeding your pipeline, making sure that you're working with everyone else that's involved in the project. I try to focus on, do I know what's happening in the pipeline? Working for a fabricator, what's in carpentry, what's in metal, what's in paint? Is it overlapping? Oh, wait, I have this opportunity for this contract, but it's going to completely overlap and burn out my people. Well, do I turn down this job? It's not just about the sale because you have to think about the consistency and all those things to your client. Because in B2B work, you have to think about all of the stakeholders, right? The
Yeah.
CFO wants cost, right, and ROI. The CEO wants growth. The COO wants efficiency. Business development requires you to understand the stakeholder's perspective. In sales, I'm just selling, getting money, selling, getting money, selling, getting money. But if I'm looking at all of this, I have to build sustainable growth. You have to think that you might be talking to someone for 2 to 3 or 8 years before a project comes to fruition. And that can be, right? We think about the museum work. That's years and years of
Yeah.
fundraising, right? I'm
Yeah.
not going to go in and sell you something off the cuff right now today. I'm getting you to understand what I am building for you, right? Sales has tactics. And someone said to me one time, I'm going to use your tactic. I'm going to go talk to someone and learn about their family. I'm like, wait. That's not a tactic. I care about these people. I want to know that that man's daughter won her softball game this weekend. That's important to me because I care about people,
Yeah.
going back to how you frame this up. And so I think sales might say, like sales psychology might say, how do I get these people to buy something? Where business development is like, how do I build trust, build a shared goal, right? Generate a relationship that brings value over time. So if I'm BD and I'm filling up the pipeline, I'm bringing in the opportunities and all that, then my salesperson can be the closer, right? The contract, finishing it, tying it up, all of that. But if you send a salesperson out to build a relationship and they're sales minded, you're probably not going to get anywhere. You're probably going to turn somebody off. I've watched people be like, hey, Sondra, great to meet you. Can we work on a project? I'm like, okay, do you even know this woman? Do you know what she does? Do you understand what she brings to the table? Have you asked her about who she is? What do you know about her life? All of that counts because that is the quintessential way of looking at these are people I want to do work with.
Yes.
Right? When I buy a TV and leave Best Buy, I don't not going to probably have dinner with that salesperson, not invite them over, not going to send them a Christmas card, right? These are relationship-based driven goals that can build your return on every investment by understanding and building that trust and that competency and that clarity in the relationship. Because now I know this project's going to be successful because I understand how you work. And I think we miss that sometimes.
I think so too. Also, I think there's something that, what your thoughts made me think about. I have this saying, which might get us flagged on LinkedIn, so I have to say the nice version. But usually, like, I, I say this to everybody I work with. I want to do cool stuff, with cool people, right? And if you're not developing relationships, you don't get to find out who your cool people are, right? Because not everybody's for me. I mean, that's the truth. I mean, there's a lot of people watching this show all the time probably like, she's not for me. And that's okay. Like, I'm not trying to be for everybody. I'm just trying to do me, at the end of the day and find people who can appreciate that and see value in the work that we do. And so I love
Correct.
that what you're saying is we have these sales quotas. People are being told to go out and get this much in business, and they're missing this opportunity of actually finding who the right customer is for them.
Correct. Correct.
And
And I think there's a
powerful.
deficit there. It is
Yes.
powerful.
I'm wondering if that is like what you mean when you're talking about the revenue leakage, right?
If I insist on being transactional sometimes and someone, I'm so story driven. I think of times when I have been at Themed Entertainment Association mixers. I'm on the board, so I attend a lot of things. And someone has told me, and we've talked about this, that people from some of the bigger parks don't like to come sometimes because it's a possibility someone only wants to talk to them about a job. And these people will say that I don't think they even want to get to know me. They don't want to talk to me. They just want to know what can I bring or give them. Business development is reciprocal.
Yeah.
Right? It is building those strategic partnerships of people that you want to bring work to and you want to have work from. And that's not sales at all. Sales is one way, again, transactional, one way. Business development is a reciprocal relationship where you have to understand what's happening with your competitors. I believe in cooperation. We used to talk about this in one of my former employers. Um, you can compete and cooperate, right? And it's one of those things in looking at understanding that what your competition's bringing to you, what they're doing. It's also being able to tell the whole story. In business development, you need to be able to tell the whole story of who you're representing. In sales, I don't have to understand everything there is to know about poor Best Buy, picking on Best Buy today. I don't have to know everything about the history of Best Buy or how they came into business or what they're doing every day or whatever. I'm just on the floor meeting a quota. But if I'm out representing you, I want to know the background, how you came to be, what you're good at, all of that. I want to be able to tell the story of the organization that builds that relationship with this company so that you can say, well, this is a company I want to work with. I understand their values, their traditions, their mission statement, whatever that looks like, because that bill means that project-based work is long, right? You
Yeah.
are going to develop a relationship. You're going to be on site. You're going to be tired. You're going to be edgy. You're going to want to know how you understand that communication with that client when it gets to that point. When something's not working, you want to be able to be that solution driven. And that's what business development is, because you've had that relationship and you're like, I know I should probably wait till tomorrow to bring this up because this is not the right time. Or I need to go right now to the CEO and say, here's where we are, because I know they want to know this information now. And in sales, we don't do that. And that's where when we're developing business development, it is a different mindset of people. So if you're very sales oriented, you're probably not going to be successful in business development. And if you're a relationship person and you want to get to know someone, you're probably not going to be the fast paced sales meeting your quota. And that is the psychology behind understanding the difference. And
Yeah.
that's where I think leaders miss out, because if you're only looking at revenue, bottom line revenue, look what that, because salesy, right? And that's where I make mistakes all of the time, that we're not concerned. I got scolded one time from a leader. I was in a line for an attraction and someone behind me was a potential client, and I asked him about his kids, and there was a soccer tournament, and how's it going? And I was just talking and talking, and I got scolded because I didn't ask about a project. And I was like, not the right time, not the right place, right? We're in a line at attraction. We're hot and sweaty. We're drinking our sodas. We're waiting to get on the ride, talk about children. No, I am getting to know this person and build a relationship, because that's important. It's important. And we
Well,
sidetrack it for the sale.
and I
I'm
don't mean to
sorry?
interrupt, but to your point, wouldn't you rather work with people who thought of you when they needed you than just like pushing this product on them? Because I started in sales. That's how I became the CEO of the company, and I don't. Maybe I would say I was a little transactional. I was very much into sales, right? And I've studied a lot of sales psychology. I never really liked a lot of it either because, in fact, I just watched a reel like NLP. What is that? I hate that. Just fake and it doesn't feel right, and I don't want to manipulate people in order to get the deal. But because in technical sales, I was part of the technical part of the sales team. I was good at sales because I knew the product very well, but that doesn't work with somebody who's not technical,
Correct.
right? And
Correct.
so that's when I realized that the relationships were something that I needed to develop more. And this was early in my career. So I 100% agree with you. And I think it's very, um, I mean, I guess I envy people who can be super transactional in some ways, like ask for the deal and know to go in there and get it. And I never get mad at salespeople. I don't. I had somebody say to me one time, they were like, "Hey, you noticed how much they try to sell to you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, but like, good for them. I'm not sad about that. Like, I love that. I mean, it's hard to get people to do that. Like, I don't want to knock them, but at the same time, I completely agree with you. And I think in our industry where we have long sales cycles because it takes years to build and develop parks or for projects to
Mhm.
come to where, for fruition, it is about being known and trusted and having them think of you.
Correct. And I think there's, again, this conversation is really directed towards the themed entertainment industry, right? There's a
Sure.
place for sales, right? If I am selling a product, that is what I'm doing. I am
Yes.
selling it. And having that persuasive personality is super important. So this is this for me. I could not work at the cosmetic counter. I could not work at the electronics store. I could not because I'd be like, "Oh, you want to buy it? How's your mom?" Like I would. So they in the marriage together, great. But thinking that you can have only do this or only probably is not going to be successful
Yeah.
because this industry requires that. I mean, you look at how this started. I mean, we think about it was new. People didn't know about it, right? You were building relationships on trust. It wasn't you're selling a creative idea, right? Thinking about what that looks like. I'm not selling you a so
Right.
it makes that difference. And when I think strong companies have both, because I need you to negotiate these terms, I need you to talk about the payment schedule, all of that, right? All of that. But one of those things that we forget because sales converts the opportunities, right? BD creates the opportunities by building relationships and then by building the future projects. But then sales converts it. And so those are two different mindsets. I've used this example before, and it's kind of a healthcare thing, but I did some work in healthcare for a while, and I loved it. It speaks to me. But I worked with an organization, a large hospital organization, that they had lost 900 nurses in 1 year. And I asked them if they knew their nurses. What do you know about them? What do you have? Did you get to know them? You send them to your school and you put them in your hospital. Well, if I'm in cardiology or oncology, those may be longer term relationships that maybe don't have the outcome that we hope for, but they are ongoing, right? But if I'm in the ER, it's in and out. I don't know anything about you. I need to be right. I need to be driven like to solve that problem immediately. Those are different mindsets of people. So if you put someone that belongs in oncology in the ER, they're probably not going to be successful because they're going to want to talk to the person, get to know the person, whatever. If you put someone in the oncology unit that should be in the ER, they're probably not building this relationship at a difficult time. So understanding the psychology of your employees and where they best fit is really what also pertains to the success of how your business development works, because business development should be every employee. It really should be a BD team that's managing something, bringing the data, the analytics, the understanding, the training. But I should be making sure, if I work for you, that your employees are speaking about your company properly. They understand it. They're delivering a proper message, and they're telling that story in a rich and engaging fashion. Because that way, if I go and talk to company X and 20 people tell me they hate their job, right?
Yeah.
I'm probably not going to build a relationship there. But if I get to know that team and understand that team and give them the tools, it's like utilizing the three little pigs, house of straw, stick, or bricks. House of Bricks knows what they're doing. They gave the right tools. They set people up for success. They built that understanding. They didn't put the wrong people in the wrong job. And I've seen that people go through BD people in their companies because either the leadership is not ready for what needs to be because they want that transactional side, or the transactional people don't know what the case is to build the BD. And so you have to have a mix and truly understanding what that looks like, and understanding that relationships are not tactics. That's a big part of understanding what that difference is.
So would you say that if somebody had talks too much on the report card in school, that they would be a good candidate for this role.
Mine said it a lot.
Mine said it a lot too. That's why I'm curious, because I'm hoping my
I
mom's
think,
listening.
yeah, because you probably were building relationships or caring about people or wanting to know something or right. And it is, I
Yeah.
do think that there's a part of business development that's innate. And I think we miss the ballpark in recognizing some of those skills as our kids are growing up. And it could be that with anything, right? But I was someone that in school, particularly in high school, that people always came to talk about what was going on, and it's one of those things. It's being able to be that listener, right? That strategic thinker, really looking at how the partners or the relationships or the people work, where the salesperson's probably just trying to persuade me,
Yeah.
right? And
No, I
persuasion is
agree.
powerful. It belongs in
Yeah,
the
for
right
sure.
place. It does. It absolutely does.
I mean,
So
I heard
your
something
report
once.
card was not wrong, Sondra.
I agree. I keep, I keep trying to, I'm still trying to convince my mother of that all these years later. But that being said, I heard something once with regards to sales that I think is interesting, and why, everybody at some point has to convince somebody to do something,
Hmm.
right? And so, in many ways, everybody's in sales, but that doesn't, like you said, you need the people in the right seats. Not everybody is going to have that on their report card. Not everybody's going to be comfortable going out and getting those relationships. It's important to recognize that there are people who fit into other roles better because of just who they are and where
Correct.
they want to go. And I would say for me, one of the things I love the most about my job is building relationships with other people. It's been probably the funnest part of of everything that I do. It's one of the things I actually. You ever seen that reel? I made one of those reels where it was like I get to party all the time, but I'm actually talking about work because I'm going to all these networking events. In fact, I'm going to one tonight, and I went up to one this morning, right? Local events, because I just want to meet people. I don't know. I think I saw somewhere you said something
Yes.
about how like one person can change your life, right? Like just meeting that
You
one
never
person.
know. And I have had, yes. And as we get to know each other, you'll know I get a little emotional when I talk about something that's super passionate, but I have had interactions that I didn't realize were that impactful until years later. And
Yeah.
that fills up your cup. It fills up your cup. And um, I'll tell you a quick story, but I had a student that I mentored in high school, and hard life, hard story, hard, it was a mess. Maybe she wasn't going to graduate. Teachers were unfortunately unkind to her, didn't understand her situation at home and what she needed to do. And I just said to her, "Hey, blah blah, I will. You graduate. I will cartwheel out in the, at lunch, mid shift. I will whatever you need me to do, whatever." She's like, "You'd really cartwheel in front of the whole school." I'm like, "Whatever you need me to do, girl." Sure enough, that's nothing, right? I promised nothing. But she graduated and I cartwheeled. And that was almost 30 years ago. And just recently, she sent me a message on Facebook about how she is finishing up extensive work in college. And she went to find out about the last semester and the last class and whatever. I guess it was like 25 years ago. And it's taken her this long. And she said, and I did a cartwheel. She said, because I finished and you did a cartwheel when I finished, and that your cartwheel stayed with me. And I'm like what? Like
Yeah.
I was overwhelmed. And that's what I'm saying is you don't know. I can help you. I can answer your question at a mixer, at an IAPA. Hey, let me take you over here and introduce you. What does that take me? 5 or 10 minutes that maybe I'm setting the course for someone else to be successful. And when Molly, I will say that people came to me and said, "What can I do for you? You 5 years ago, I remember when you," and I was like, again, what? because our connectedness, like I said in the beginning, is our humanness, right? And all of that relates to the work that we do and the relationships that we build and all of those things. And all of that's important. And again, I don't ever want this to be seen that I'm saying that's a tactic, because it's not. But I think if you truly care deeply about the way that you work with people, there are people I've worked with forever. I've never done a project with them, but I would help them every single time because that's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And if their project's successful, then this industry is successful. And our success can be celebrated and molded around what everyone else is doing as much as it can be related to what I'm doing or what you're doing. And that's truly, if I want this industry to be successful and I love it and the joy that it brings, then I want someone else to have that
Yes.
success. That doesn't mean I have to be on their project.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, one of the nicest things anybody ever did for me in this industry was I was sitting next to an industry friend having dinner at an IAPA event, and was super excited to be sitting next to my friend, and this person got up and sat somebody right in between us who ended up being a really great connection for me. And I realized what he had done, in that moment. Like, man, that was so thoughtful. And that's the kind of thing that we can do for each other. You know what I
Correct.
mean? Like, I this person, I most certainly knew they were doing that, but that's what you were really meaning about these relationships, right?
Correct.
I I think this person knew that we needed each other, if that makes sense. The person they
Correct.
sat in between us
Correct.
and me, that we needed each other. And it's such a powerful skill to have, to be able to connect people like that. And like you said, maybe you won't do business with every person, but you would help them every single time. And hopefully, in my case, I always want to be able to pay that forward, because that was a really
Correct.
nice thing that somebody did.
And that
And
makes it stronger because these things all come back around in some way.
yes,
And that's, again, that's the circle of how, you know, business, how that we ask are different from sales and how we're building that. Like business development, you want to talk about what's the percentage of growth? What are your priorities, right? That's right, not the number driven, right? And I think it's why it can be um, looking at what builds those factors of trust, right? And that is key to successful long game, right? You want to be in your office, in your space, in your business with your company, or whether it's yours or someone else's, you want them in the long game. And that business development is the long game. And that's where I think when you understand that and you're people driven, that is the most successful way in someone that could hire a true business development person. So I spoke to someone recently that has been struggling to hire someone, and I said, do you know what you want? Do you know what you want? Because you have to figure out, is this just selling what you're doing or building these relationships for a long term? Because you've had a problem hiring someone for almost a couple of years. So I think you have to determine. And if we're going to be successful, that's part of business development too. Like I want to make sure I'm helping you be the most successful. I'm looking at what's that return on everything we do. Do we have a booth at IAPA? Do we sponsor this event? Do we speak at this, right? Does that make sense to what the company's growth, the long-term goals are? What are the percentage of the way that we can growth? And where does that build that relationship with that client so they come back to us again and again and again? Business development builds repeat customers.
yeah.
Sales sets them on their way to be successful. So, and that's what a good sales part of your company can do with a good, strong contract, right? With good
Yeah.
terms in the contract, right? So it's where that, again, I'm going to use the flour and sugar forever. You got to have both that to have something taste well, taste good. Not
Well,
good.
and I
No.
know we're getting close to the end of this show, but I think this is a question that I have on my mind as somebody who is a leader in a business. I lead a sales team, and I'm sure that other people watching have the same thought going through their heads as they watch this show, right? Because we've been so focused on relationships, but how do you balance the relationships with the pressure, the very real pressure of building and having those quarterly goals hit, or any goals, like any targets? Like, how do we hit these targets and still, what does that balance look like?
Well, I think one of it has to be if you're working within a pipeline that you understand, then I think, let me back up. I think where we get caught up in is just filling the pipeline with stuff and getting in the door, right? But I think if you're being strong about the way that you're using your data and you're looking at projections, like in Q2 or Q3, we should be looking at projections of things in 2027, right? We should be filling up that
Yes.
pipeline. We should know where we're at. And I think we have to be strong. Now, sales can work when you're at a deficit, but was Q1 really great? And now Q2 is not so great, but Q3 looks great. So now we're balancing it out. So I think you have to have that mindset. I also will tell people you should have had projects that filled up your coffers that you can go back to, right? If you're just working from project to project, you're probably not being intentional about the projects you're taking, right? You want to have this project that maybe has a 2-year span, and you want this project that has a 3-month span. You want this project that has a 6-month span, right? And you're dividing those up. I know people that go from project to project. So if I'm only on this project 40 hours a week for 9 months, I've not probably given any thought to where I fill these holes in. I used to manage a studio, and I would look at, well, 4 hours on this project, 10 hours on this project, 14 hours on this project, right? So I got this person working 40 hours a week. That's not 40, but you get the idea. And I have 3 projects running simultaneously. But this one is 9 months, this one is 6 months, and this is 2 years. So you have to be intentional about the projects you take in. And a lot of times I think we spin our wheels in just getting it in the door. You also have to look at the contract value. Does it make sense? Am I doing 25 $5,000 jobs when I should be doing a $500,000 job, a $200,000 job, and maybe 4 $5,000 jobs? You have to be mixing that up. And that's where I think we lose sight of what business development is from that standpoint. It's not just the dinners and the drinks and the how-to-dos and the parties. It is that structural build of being intentional about the projects you take in, how it affects post-mortem. Back, I hate the word, budgeted this at 22 hours and it really was 42 hours, so I've lost 20 hours of work. It's all of that because you want that return on investment to be maximized. You want to understand why you lost money on a project. Are you willing to change your profit margin to win a job for a company that's gotten to know you? This is the first thing out the door. Yes, I'll take this project. I'll make a little less money so they can see that I am who they think I am. So I think it's having all the balls in the air and then knowing which one to catch and when to release it. And that takes time, diligence, patience, and a strong system on the back end of running that as, as a play, if you will. I hope that makes sense. It's a lot.
Yeah, no, I mean it makes a lot of sense, and I love the differentiation between business development and sales you're giving us today, because I do think that um, going back to, like I was mentioning, my career, I learned sales, but I didn't learn the business development part. I did have that naturally because I had that talk too much on my report card. So that came natural to me. But that being said, having to show other people the way, like you're saying, is very interesting. And I did have a conversation with a park one time that had a system they weren't necessarily happy with, but the decision maker kept telling me, so and so buys me a lobster dinner every time he comes into town. And I wasn't, and I hadn't even thought of that, right? Like I was just coming here, and maybe I was being a little too transactional. And to me, that seemed transactional. That so and so was buying her a lobster dinner every time he was coming to town. But the truth is, she liked that. It meant a lot to her. And that is business development, right? And at some point, I realized that, right?
That's
Because
exactly the tool.
my boss, who isn't, I don't know if he would call himself the greatest sales guy ever. He did build the company to a certain point, and then he hired salespeople, knowing that that was not his forte. But he for a long time would be like, "Don't buy the deal. right?
Mm.
And I think that's important too, to some degree. Like you don't want you. That's very transactional. So in my mind, when she would tell me this, I was like, well, you know. And then he ended. I'll tell you a funny story. He ended up leaving the company, and I walked up to her and I said, "Hey, can I buy you lobster dinner tonight?" And we became great friends, right? And
Well,
we
I
became
think
great.
that's
We're
part of
still
it,
good friends.
right?
Yeah,
So people know this about me, and it is something I've done for a long time. I handwrite thank you notes, right?
yeah, that's
It's a,
great.
it's a thing, been a thing for a long time, and it is a method of keeping that relationship live. I want, again, it's about the relationship,
Yeah,
and I think it's about you understanding that that lobster dinner was important is because you know something about that person, right? It wasn't necessarily about the deal in that conversation. It
yes,
was about breaking bread with someone is
a hundred
super
percent.
powerful, right? Um, when you involve your senses and all the things that you do, it's super powerful. And breaking bread can be a sacred experience. So
Yes,
if they valued that time, right? Now you learn something about this person that,
yeah.
right,
I
is
mean, we could do a
important to the
whole show
relationship.
just on that. I believe because I think that's a very undervalued part of business. I think it's super important to sit and eat with people, and 100% agree with what you're saying.
I
So
appreciate
we'll
that.
show on that, Molly. Breaking
I'll be
bread with
back for your
people.
200th show.
Yeah, I love that. Well, and you know what? That's the sad part about doing these shows is they do come to an end, and we're about at time. And you've been so generous with your time and the information that you've shared today.
I appreciate that.
That I so much that I hope the listeners who are on listening or the people who are watching that they do want to get in touch with you and find out how maybe they can improve the way their businesses are doing both sales and business relationships. And if somebody would like to get a hold of you, how can people get a hold of Simply Molly or follow you, or what's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
So you can find me on Instagram, and I can send that out, Simply Molly. You can Molly.Piveral, Molly dot my last name at gmail.com. You can email me, connect with me on LinkedIn. If there's a way for me to help you, super great. If you just want to ask a question and have a 15-30 minute conversation that I could maybe help you make some relationship down the line, or hey, do you know so and so? So Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, email. Please don't hesitate to find me. I am uh, more than willing to reach out, help you with your business, or just answer some questions that, my 100 years of experience could be handed off to somebody else. Because, I always joke with some of the new kids that, like, look, I'm going to be dead and you're still going to be working. So if I can help you be successful, that's what we should be doing. We should be helping each other. We should be encouraging each other, and we should be growing each other. And that's what we can do. And that's what we should do with our relationships within our business too. Helping each other be more successful, growing each other, and maximizing the way that we get to know each other so that when it comes to the project, you can trust me.
Yeah, and I think this show has really been so much about and what stood out to me is this is not about selling more. I mean, if we really look at this industry and in some cases like I work a lot in water parks, it's not an old industry, right? And the people
Correct.
who built that industry, they knew each other and they trusted each other.
And that's where I think that all comes from, right? And that's
Yes.
that's really the key, right? And it's building
Yeah,
that
building
generational
trust.
trust. That's
Building
what we should do.
trust. And
Sondra,
teaching
thank you
like
so much.
thank you. I could keep going forever on this topic, but I just really hope that everybody watching does get a hold of you if you are somebody that could if somebody out there could use your help, or like you said, you're mentoring the next generation of people and we need to teach the next generation of people
We
how
do.
to build trust and build relationships. Pick up the phone, send the text, all the things that matter to people today. Meet people where they're at. I think
That's correct.
before I
And
let you
don't be
go,
afraid. I'll tell you this. Don't be
what's
afraid to
that?
ask the question. Go talk to
Yes.
people. Don't be afraid to ask the question. Get out there, introduce yourself, find a way to make things work for you. It's not that hard to do. You can do it. I trust you and you can do it.
Yes. Well, thank you, Molly, for being here. I'll see you soon.
You're welcome. Yes, you will.
Well, I think one of the other things I really loved about this conversation one time, and I just want to leave you guys with this. I asked a friend of mine who is a great relationship builder, you know, how she stays in touch with everybody, because that was something that I struggled with. And she said, well, why don't you just ask people where they hang out? So I just want to leave you guys with that, because, you know, as you're building these relationships, sometimes it's important to find out, you know, is the best way to keep connected on LinkedIn or WhatsApp. What is that for the people that you want to stay connected to and meet them where they're at? I thought that was some of the best, and that was probably some of the best advice I have ever been given. But again, I want to thank Molly for being here and for reminding people that business is ultimately about people. And that's one of the reasons at GateMaster, we've been fortunate enough to work with many of the same clients that we've had for decades. And that's something I'm really proud of. And those relationships didn't just happen by accident. They happened because of great conversations. They happened because of trust. They happen because of consistency and because we do want to be in the service of others. And that is our commitment to help our customers succeed. Technology can open doors, but relationships, they keep them open. So thank you for everyone who is listening today, everybody who joined us live, all of our podcast listeners. And if you enjoyed today's conversation, make sure you like, subscribe, and follow the brand new Live with Sondra YouTube channel. And this is where we're going to continue to have conversations that are shaping the future of the experience economy. I'm Sondra, and this is Live. We'll see you next time.